Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is.
Welcome back. It's Friday. Hey, I'll say it now. Sorry I was not here for the last couple of days. I had a lot to do. So I was a little bit busy. But it's good to see you guys on a Friday. We got a ton of stuff to talk to you about. Tina, I'm just kind of walk through it really quick. Tina was put in the hole. So Tina was actually put in the hole for speaking up about one of the teachers in the continued education classes that they have to take in order to get good time and things like that, was basically creating problems and talking badly about Tina to the other inmates, probably because Jared Polis or Jenna Griswold or one of the other radical leftists had something to do with that. In other words, hey, we want you to go in there and we want you to create problems for Tina because we want her to have a miserable life. Now, I put it up last night on some socials, and I had a couple of people that came over and said, they basically said, "Oh, too bad, she deserves to suffer." And so I'm going to put up information about one of those people I was able to track all the way back, and I want to see, and we'll do this on Monday. I want to see how that person's going to react when they get 1,000 phone calls to their place of employment for that. So they said a bunch of nasty things about Tina, hoping that she died and things like that. So, it's really unfortunate about the radical left is that this is who they are. They will show you by their fruits. This is definitely who they are. One of the issues that I have a problem with, and I talked a little bit about it, is the idea of all the election fraud and things that we're dealing with now. But I'm gonna start by putting this up if we can. Let's put up the first one. This is an update on Tina Peters. Then we're gonna bring our guest in here. I'll tell you who he is in a minute. Tina has been moved to solitary confinement today after filing a grievance with the warden about a teacher in the prison, making statements to numerous other inmates about her. Some of those inmates informed Tina that the teacher was speaking openly about the fact that Tina is never going to leave prison and that the state will never let her out. Tina asked the teacher about their statements about her while passing them in the hall of the facility. This results in the teacher and inmates antagonizing Tina and ganging up on her verbally. Inmates openly supported the teacher and their statements and berated Tina for not telling the media to stay silent on her conditions and details of her case. At the suggestion of other inmates, Tina filed a grievance against the teacher this morning. Tina was then brought to medical for a physical evaluation consisting of a strip search, a meeting with mental health, followed by the manager of mental health in the facility, and then made to wait for several hours. Tina was then informed that she would be moved to solitary confinement due to the investigation involving internal affairs. She was told the investigation could take up to 17 days. She expects to remain in solitary for the duration of the investigation. As of now, she has been removed from her normal cell and is currently being held in solitary confinement. She has been told she is not being punished and has been allowed to keep her iPad, but does not have access to the internet, therefore cannot call any of her approved contacts or her attorneys unless the rest of the pod is put back in their cells until she has completed her calls. She is in a windowless cell, again, with no contact, and will be allowed out of her cell 1 to 2 hours per day. This is a difficult day for Tina, as you can imagine, especially considering that this on the eve of her mother's 97th birthday. Please keep Tina Peters in your prayers and pray that an honest investigation is performed on the misconduct of the individuals involved in the inappropriate and willful targeting of a political prisoner. Pray that she gets to see her 97-year-old mother again soon. If you can support Tina, she needs your help. Please share her website, tinapeters.us, and encourage everyone you know to donate to support her living expenses and legal bills so that she can stay afloat and win so that she can never happen to any other American. God bless you and thank you for your prayers and support of America. Gold Star Mother and the courageous clerk in the most courageous clerk in the nation. The hard part about reading that is that we find ourselves in a place where this could be every American. They did it to J6 prisoners, and so the radical left are really kind of ratcheting up what they did on the federal level. They now don't have the mechanisms there, so they just moved it to the state level where they have captured different states. I don't want to tell you what I want to do, but I think that the people that are responsible for this sedition, for the treason against our nation, for the stealing of the voice of people and treating you like a slave, what they've done to Tina, I think it's treason. I think it's sedition. And it is punishable by death if found guilty. I think President Trump should stop the charade. We should stop having conversations about whether or not it is or is not a coup against the American people. It's really hard to ignore what we're actually dealing with. When our education system is subjected to this, our financial systems are subject to this, the medical profession is subjected to this. We're going to come back to the rest. Our guest has a heart out. We're only going to have him for about 50 minutes. So let's talk about our friend that's going to be joining us. It's J. Michael Waller. He's a senior analyst for the Center for Security Policies and author of Big Intel. It's a best-selling book. I have a hard time with the CIA because I think the CIA is just such a corrupt apparatus. And he wrote a book called Big Intel, How the CIA and FBI Went from Cold War Heroes to Deep State Villains. He's a former Annenberg Professor of International Communications at the Institute of World Politics. He's a veteran of intelligence, operative, and fieldwork recruited by CIA Director William Casey. And an expert on ideological subversion, political warfare, and the Marxist capture of U.S. institutions. He has American lineage that dates back before we were even a nation, in the 1600s. So I'm going to just welcome Mike to the show. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joe.
How are you?
Doing great. Happy to be with you.
Hey, glad to have you with me. I'm going to ask a question that's completely off book. How do you trust an organization like the CIA when they've subverted the sovereignty of so many nations around the world?
Well, you don't trust it in the first place. Even President Eisenhower couldn't trust it.
Yeah.
Even Truman couldn't trust it, and he created it. In terms of subverting other countries around the world, I really don't have a problem with it because its job is to defend our sovereignty. And in defending our sovereignty, we have to mess around with other countries where either they mean us harm or third powers are using them to mean us harm.
Well, I mean, that's a good point, but I mean, couldn't you just argue the fact that we're creating a whole new generation of terrorists by destabilizing nations and killing millions of people, either by proxy or by direct action of those countries?
Well, you don't need to use violence. You can use politics. For example, the CIA saved Italy from going communist in the 1948 elections. That was a big deal. No one was hurt. It was just a question of moving money around to political parties because the only political party that was unified after World War II was the Italian Communist Party. So that was a great move. And we did this in a whole lot of countries around the world to prevent Soviet and communist takeovers. So there are a lot of great operations that were done that really didn't get the credit they were due, or they were bashed by the Marxists because they succeeded.
So then how do we look at some of the operations they were able to do in places like Italy, and I'm actually not familiar with that history, so I can't really speak to it. But then you look at some of the things that happened in the Middle East, the lies that were told to the American people, and even North Africa, or we can talk about Nigeria and the open connections between the CIA and Shell Corporation when they went in and created private wars in the Niger Delta, and then left it a wasteland. So there's like a lot of other things that I look at that led to kind of this communist takeover that we see happening around the world. It's almost as if we pushed pause and may have done things in 1948, even up through the 1950s. But what I look at right now, what I see right now is, I mean, it's hard to ignore that this is like the a communist takeover that is engulfing. It's like a nuclear mushroom.
Well, that's part of the reason I wrote Big Intel, was because you had enemy attempts, enemy campaigns to capture our institutions right when they were created, the CIA being one of them, or the OSS before it during World War II. It was full of Stalinist agents and Stalinist spies, and their job was, they took it as their job, as not so much to wage World War II to defeat the Nazis, as opposed to wage World War II to ensure Soviet domination after the Nazi defeat. So when you had people like that inside our system, and you had, the right-hand man to OSS Director Bill Donovan during World War II was working for the Soviets. The whole sellout of the nationalists in China was partly because you had CIA and State Department people working on the Soviet side. So when you don't protect your institutions at home, you're ensuring that our enemies are going to take them over.
So how do we let's not go that far. Let me back up a little bit first. If you look at the intelligence community as a separate pieces or separate apparatuses, because you have the ODNI, you got DHS, you have the FBI, you have CIA, you have subsections of the CIA, so they have other organizations underneath the CIA that we can consider the intelligence apparatus, that are then tied to organizations like USAID that, is a cover or a front versus intelligence operations in certain areas. There's obviously other parts of the defense sector or even the agricultural sector that have their own intelligence units. So has it just gotten too big? I mean, are we just talking about a machine that's gotten so big that now there's absolute no accountability? It's almost like anarchy within the intelligence community, and that's why we see things that just keep popping up.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. There, like any human endeavor is going to want to expand. Any bureaucracy is going to want to expand. And then when people leave the bureaucracy, they're going to want to go into a business which contracts that bureaucracy to keep them going and to, profit from their lifetime of experience. So it's natural that we should be expecting these things. The problem is there's been no oversight. Congress has been asleep at the switch for half a century. In the whole CIA's history, there was only one serious set of oversight investigations, and that ended 49 years ago.
Well, the scary part about that is that there hasn't been any CIA agents that have been arrested for treason or treasonous activity, I don't think, since the 1970s, right? 1980s, excuse me. So you have a lot of different operations that are happening out there. And do you think the president, or do you think that let's say Congress, do you think anyone has control over these organisms, these bureaucracies?
No. Just think, the president can only appoint 2 of his own people to run the CIA, which is 25,000 roughly, maybe a little more. So you have 2. That means the bureaucracy is running itself. You have it even so that the CIA has its own people working on the House and Senate oversight committees. And the House and Senate hire them because these guys are insiders and they know how the agencies work. But in my experience, you have the CIA running Congress far more than Congress oversees the CIA.
You do realize what you're saying, that the deep state is a real thing, and it's tied right back to the intelligence community, which means if there is a lawlessness that happens in the intelligence world, then our judiciary is just frankly a false front, that we don't have real laws, we don't have real accountability in this country at all.
Well, just think of it. You're an American citizen who sacrifices to serve your country, or you simply go out to protest abuses that you see.
Right.
You then have your whole future destroyed because you have been unjustly accused by this big government machine. Whether it's just a normal citizen as a protester, whether it's a government official who's been now put under the investigation simply because the bureaucracy doesn't like that person, or whether it's someone like Tina Peters. You have people constantly having their lives wrecked through endless legal expenses, losing their jobs, losing their reputations, and even losing their freedom because you have this out of control government apparatus.
Okay, so if what you're saying, I mean, I believe what you're saying is absolutely correct. It's hard to ignore the obvious. It's right in front of you. But if that's true, then the only way to actually overcome this is to shut it down.
Yeah, that's right. But then the bureaucracy is a breathing, living creature. What do creatures do when someone tries to shut them down? They will defend themselves and go on the offense. And that's what you see happening. This is why the politicians who don't challenge the apparatus don't get leaked against. They don't get in trouble. It's the Donald Trumps of the world and the others who actively attack the system who are the ones who end up getting punished.
Well, I mean, you're right. But listen, this isn't the first time that I've heard what you're saying is true. And obviously you have decades of experience related to this. But if we all know it's true, even people that are laymen's that, watch NCIS or Jason Bourne, there's a reason why these shows exist, right? That it's not that far from plausible what's possible, right? So if what you're saying is true and everybody knows it's true, why have we not put a stop to it?
Because there's a narrative like with the FBI that's been going on since the 1930s. So it's a 90-year-old narrative that these are the heroic, selfless good guys. They can do no wrong. They're the only thing protecting us against them. And in some ways that was true, but in many ways it was absolutely not true. But it's a narrative that's been swallowed by much of the public and by much of our political leadership of either party, and you can't touch it. So there's this idea that, you can't touch the FBI because it's sacrosanct. In Big Intel, I propose dismantling the FBI. It performs a lot of functions that the country needs: counterespionage, counterterrorism, public corruption, a lot of other things it does that's important. But you don't need an FBI to do that, especially when you have multiple agencies doing these things. There's so much duplication. So to put it all in the hands of one central agency that you can't touch because it's somehow sacred, that's KGB think. The Soviets, the KGB called itself the Holy of Holies. You cannot touch it. It's as precious as a shrine or even more. The FBI has adopted that mentality that you can't touch the FBI because we're a sacred institution.
All right. So, Mike, if we're talking about the tools that can be used to subvert the will of the people or to steal the voice of the people, you would start with elections, would you not?
Yeah, I would even start with the how we think, how we perceive, because those govern how we act and how we don't act. Those govern how we vote and how we don't vote. They govern how we protest or seek to just, let's let things lie and let's stay at home, whether we're courageous or whether we're cowardly. So all of that leads up to elections, which is the ultimate action to determine who will govern our country.
Okay. Are there any good guys in the CIA?
Yeah, there is. But see, here's the thing. You can be a good guy to go in, but then you get ground down by the system. Then you get to the point where I'm just here just to put in my ears to make a difference where I can. Understand I can't make a whole lot of a difference, but someday they're going to need me for something, and then I'm going to become enough years of service where I can get my pension, and then I'm going to get out. Those aren't bad people. A lot of them are really good people. They're just ground down, demoralized, isolated. This is at the headquarters side. Out in the field, you really have some first-rate people doing first-rate stuff, or they can be deployed to do first-rate stuff. But overall, you have a bureaucracy that's probably 10 times the size that it should be. We don't need 38,000 people in the CIA. You can do it with 1/10 of that. You'll have far superior service.
Well, you definitely would have a easier way to look at the bottom of the ocean, right? Of people. I mean, you would. Let's talk about DEI, pronouns, all this, let's just call it retarded, right? All the ridiculous and the retarded that we cater to. Like we actually give air to things that a normal person would look at and go, you're retarded. Like that's just not, I mean, come on, that's, a boy can't be a girl. But we're letting men play in women's sports because it creates chaos. And this is something, by the way, that was told to me by someone who's in the intelligence community. He goes, chaos favors the op, never favors the people, Joe. Anytime you see chaos, always look for the op.
Yep. Yeah, that's a fair point. It's not always an op, but it often is an op, or it's the result of an op. Because some of these ops take on a life of their own, and they even outlive their creators. So what we're seeing with DEI and with wokeness overall began as a Soviet covert operation in 1922, over 100 years ago. I traced this in Big Intel to the very meeting in Moscow with Felix Dzerzhinsky, who was head of the Cheka, which was the precursor to the KGB. He was there with a group and of foreign communist leaders as well. So how can we replicate a revolution in the Western countries? Can't do it Bolshevik style, violent style, because that's just not going to happen. How can we do it? Well, they decided to subvert the institutions. This is when they put Communist Party members under Soviet control in the seminaries of churches, packed them into the universities, changed the curriculum once they're in the universities, brought them into law, into politics, into entertainment, into journalism, to culture, every single aspect of life you can think of, to subvert the institutions, to take people away from their Western Christian roots and to have them turn against those roots as anachronistic, as primitive, as something that has no value. And then in that way, they subvert their own society so that the societies will rot, so that over a period of time, the trained and organized cadres would take over those institutions.
So you see this sectioning that happens inside of our society. So once they've actually divided it into 50 different parts, then they have to subdivide those 50 parts into 100 parts, and those parts into another 100 parts. So you'll have someone that you can agree with on 99% of those things. You get to a social issue, and boom, you're completely separated from that person right next to you that ideologically you're closely aligned with. So if you've done this more and more and more, it basically weakens your ability to stand up against a greater enemy, which is in this case communism and or socialism, or socialism wrapped in bacon that tries to not look like communism.
Exactly. And it's not even communism of the old type of Karl Marx being the economist. So it's not the economic side of communism, it's the social and cultural side, where they're always looking for an oppressor, whether it's the capitalist oppressor or the Christian oppressor or the American founding principles oppressor or the white male oppressor. They have to be oppressor versus the oppressed. So the oppressed can be multi-billionaires out there, but they're oppressed. So they're fighting back against those that they view are oppressing them. So this is what's called cultural Marxism. And so they take over the culture, and by that way, they're able to destroy society and then impose whatever dictatorship of whatever type they wish to. Karl Marx actually wrote about this, but it didn't catch on, so he stuck to the economics.
Do you think that the people that are saying all this nonsense believe it, or do you think they're doing it because they understand the operation and what it ultimately is going to lead to?
Both. A lot of them really believe it. You can see how hysterical they get. Try going home for Thanksgiving, right? How many families are going to see the hysteria in a lot of their families over a lot of this craziness because people really do believe it?
None of my family.
Well, good. But I mean, it's a lot of families can't say it. A lot of great families can't say it, especially if they have kids and grandkids who go to universities and they're just getting fed this all the time, and they're stuck on all this other popular culture. And then it's usually the mothers or some other figure in the family who will stand by them, or at least try to be nice to them, or at least tell everybody, please be quiet because so-and-so thinks he's a she. So they really do believe it. But on the other hand, a lot of the militants who get so militant about shutting people up have to shut you up because they really don't believe it. and they know that you don't believe it, and they're afraid you're going to persuade them and others that they are actually wrong. And then you have others who think, I just want to get ahead in this world, and this is the way to get ahead.
Okay, so let me ask you about. So you worked in the intelligence community. Tell me from your perspective. Did you get to learn to read microaggressions, micro expressions in people? Did you ever get to that place?
Well, no, I didn't. I did that on my own. I was only I worked as a CIA asset, so I was never a CIA officer or an employee. Never went to the farm. I was recruited when I was in college for CIA Director Casey, who was President Reagan's CIA director. And what Casey was doing was he was setting up a whole private intelligence network of younger people, idealistic people, who really didn't know what they were doing. It's just their heart was in the right place. Just the way his old boss, Wild Bill Donovan, set up the OSS during World War II. So I was one of those guys. And it was all privately funded. And 30 years later, I found that we were funded right out of Bill Casey's pocket. But I got to interact with a lot of the people that you're talking about, people who'd been in the system, a lot of the old guard who really knew how to do these things. But on the outside, I got to learn some of the things you were starting to ask about.
Yeah, so did you work directly with Bill Casey, or was it just in cursory during that time frame?
I met him once in church. He gave me my cryptonym in church. Well, the reason was, I was told in advance, go to St. Matthew's Cathedral, 5 o'clock vigil mass on Saturday, stay in the left rear part of the church, and don't move until someone approaches you. And sure enough, under the law, Congress cannot compel anybody to testify about what went on in church. So he would go to mass every day, and he would meet people in church, and that's how I got my cryptonym from him.
Okay, well, it's good that you got to meet him. He seemed to be one of the good guys. Do you count him among the good guys in the CIA?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, he was recruited. He left he developed a tax shelter to escape New Deal taxes. He was a lawyer, and he quit that to join the OSS, the Navy, and then OSS during World War II. And he's the one who had the crazy idea: let's parachute guys behind Nazi lines, recruit anti-Nazi Germans, and then pave the way for the D-Day invaders to come up and make the march all the way to Berlin. He was one of those crazy guys who people would have said, this is you're out of your mind. A lot of people did, but they went ahead and did it anyway, and he was right.
And he fought against a lot of the subversion with the Iran-Contra affair in the 80s. And I'll tell you how much I know about that. I have a couple dogs. And two of my dogs are named Ollie and Reagan. Ollie is named after Oliver North, and Reagan is named after Reagan. So I'm an idealist when it comes to some of the things that they were able to do and stop some of the subversions. And I know people say a lot of bad things about Oliver North and those guys, but I believe, frankly, that what they did prolonged our sovereignty, or at least any threats that we had to the sovereignty of our own nation by doing that. So
absolutely. And I was active in the Contra side of that back then. So I was working down in Central America with the Contras, spent years on and off with them from 83 to the early 90s when they were disbanded. And they made all the difference from whether or not our southern border went under Soviet control or not. I mean, can you imagine, had our southern border been taken over by the Soviets 40 years ago, how bad the situation would be in our country today?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, and this is where I say that we haven't figured out who our enemy is, and we certainly haven't figured out how to treat our friends, right? So as a result of that, we run a very bipolar foreign policy and domestic policy, and I saw this up close and personal. I spent 6.5 years in the Middle East and Africa. I learned Arabic going back and forth, and I had no business being there, Mike. I had no business being there. It's like you being in college. I went in there, solved the problem. All of a sudden, I became the fixer. I became the guy like, hey, just ask Joe to do it. And we didn't have Grok back then. so I was figuring shit out on my own. But because of this, I was able to see crazy things, like crazy stuff that happened. I had a conversation, one of the only conversations I had with someone who was a CIA agent who had to tell me he was a CIA agent, because I looked over at him and I was like, nobody normal talks the way you do. CIA, or who do you work for? And because of how I said it, he goes, yes. I totally got him off guard, right? But I don't, and by the way, what they were doing over there in one of those African nations was actually a really great thing. And so I get torn, which is why I asked you, are there any good guys left in there? Because it's like having, the only way to kill evil is to get rid of it. The only way to get rid of it is either replace it with good, like drain all the blood and give you new blood, or kill it. So do we have enough good assets inside the CIA that we can do anything, or do we have to kill it?
Ugh. We certainly have to cut off the dead branches and cut out the cancerous parts, of which there's a lot.
It's 25,000, brother. I mean,
yeah, I mean, and really a lot of them, they don't do much work that a secret intelligence service should be doing. Just think of what every bureaucracy has, just the human resources people, for example. Yeah. A lot of the accounting, ridiculous. A lot of the work is just make work to justify a job and to justify a program, which might or might not even have presidential approval or have anything in the national interest. But a lot of the intelligence that's collected, you can get in the open media. Most of the intelligence we collect secretly, I mean, apart from the satellite and the technical stuff, but most of the human intelligence we collect, it's not because we have a lot of agents in the clandestine service. We do have some fine ones in the clandestine service. It's we rely on the Pakistanis or the you name whatever, the Mexicans, any other security service of another country to act as liaisons to provide us with their intelligence. But they're only going to supply us with information that suits their own interests. So we end up being hostage to that.
Okay, if Bill Casey was alive today, and he walked in and he saw pride flags everywhere and all this stuff, what do you think he'd say?
Shut it down.
That's it? Just shut it down?
Shut it down. The whole thing. Shut it down and start over. Just like after World War II. As soon as the Japanese surrendered in World War II, President Truman just shut down the OSS. He didn't even tell General Donovan. He just shut it down. Then we were 2 years without an intelligence service at all, which was a big danger.
Wait, no, that was probably the most peaceful 2 years in our country's history, though. Right? I mean, you could argue that there wasn't a whole lot of conflict and there was no bubbling up that happened during those 2 years.
Well, Stalin was getting back on his feet also, but it was dangerous not to have an intelligence service because we didn't know what was going on. And that's where you had talking about it earlier, the 1948 elections in Italy. This led right up to it, and we were just barely getting started. And Jim Angleton saved that single-handedly. So we're in a super dangerous part of our history right now. But I think Casey would say just shut the whole thing down, start over.
Yeah. Okay, let's say you shut it down. You still have the FBI, you still have ODNI, you still have the DHS, you still have, and I haven't even started talking about the interlocked organizations that they have that are binational, multinational. Is shutting down the CIA? Would you even be able to shut it down without its tentacles being tied into other intelligence agencies and still have access to those tools and those assets?
Well, no, it's really complicated because the CIA was created by statute. So a president just can't shut it down.
So how do you shut it down?
Functions that we really need because the president needs to be informed every day of what's going on in the world. He needs an intelligence service every day for collecting intelligence, for analyzing it, and then for executing operations that he orders. So you can't be without it. But I think it's become so bad, to come back to you, Casey would come back and be just so horrified. He'd say, shut it down and let's start over. And if you had a president who could do that and who would do that, we'd be in great shape. But right now we have a President Trump's decided he needs the CIA for whatever purpose he wants. He doesn't want to go on an offensive against them. He's got a CIA director who's a fine man, but he's not a transformational figure. And he's one of only two people running the agency.
Well, let's talk about that specifically, right? So one of the biggest issues you have when you have the long march through institutions is that in order for you to have a change of guard and change of ideology and a capture of a nation, you have to weaken the composition and the disposition of the people in charge.
Right.
And so you just said that you don't have any transformational figures. I mean, I think you could argue that Cash Patel. I think you get what I'm going at here. You have very weak leadership, and it's not just at the congressional level. Well, you could look across the board at what's happening in the FBI or the DOJ, or even the state governments at the governors all the way down. We are not governed by people who are competent people at every level. And if you were, you wouldn't have the degradation we'd have in our society from an institutional standpoint if the long march through the institution wasn't nearly complete.
Yeah, one thing bureaucracies tend to do is to grind down the competent people, and they won't last very long in there. And those who do last become demoralized or very cynical, and then they'll ultimately self-purge. So what you have now with FBI, again, you have a hostile takeover of a hostile organization, the Bureau, to put in with Cash Patel as director and Dan Bongino as deputy director. And that was a very important position to appoint Bongino as deputy director, because the FBI has always run its directors since J. Edgar Hoover. Directors have not run the FBI. And they've run it through the deputy director, who was almost always an FBI special agent. So by putting in someone who was not an FBI special agent like Bongino, you've got a lot of insulation there. But again, it's only two people.
So it's only two people, only two people, only two people, only two people.
It was set up.
Yes, but the people in this country, I mean, you have Tina Peters that's rotting in jail, able to do and act with impunity, do whatever they want. Mike, I don't have to tell you that people like me, we don't want to live in a country that is run where we're run by like slaves, where the judiciary is so rotted out that it persecutes with impunity and gets to pick winners and losers, because that's in essence what has happened. And you have fraudulent elections on one side, and then you have, big pharma. And I mean, I could walk down the list of things that are allowed to do what they want, whether they're talking about the financial institutions and holding you hostage with interest rates and controlling the influx of, the winners and losers financially, or we talk about big pharma and some of the things they've been able to do tied to autism and comorbidities and some of the diseases that we've had to deal with over the last 30 years. I mean, we're under attack. The people are under attack. And you take out the representation part, we have this huge vacuum. It's just a matter of time till that fills up with a chasm of people who are incredibly angry. So how do we stop that from happening? How do we stop the kettle from blowing while recognizing that these people have to go? And they're not going to leave peacefully. I mean, there's not going to be a peaceful resolution where terrible people, rotted out people decide I'm going to just hang it up.
No, you need a strong leader who just doesn't care. And this is where Donald Trump has a huge amount of promise, because he can be a wrecking ball. So when I voted for him before, I was hoping for a wrecking ball. I didn't get one. Instead, I got status quo, where the deep state types were still running everything, and they were running against him.
Yeah.
Now he's come in and he's decided to put a team together and to do something about it. A lot of the team, they're great people. Some of them, not so much, but they're his appointees. So I'm not going to be trying to undermine them when they're trying to do at least something right. But the way the system is set up, it's huge bureaucracies with just a small amount of political control. Now, the small amount of political control was designed originally, so we're told anyway, so that these bureaucracies could not be politicized. But when, as you were saying, you have these marches through the institutions where you have the new hires coming in. Think of it right now. The new hires coming in were brand new employees when Barack Obama was elected. They're the ones now running the upper management of these organizations. And through DEI, you have these incompetent, highly politically charged lunatics literally running these bureaucracies because they were artificially promoted. They were selected by political radicals from the top under Obama, under Trump 45, because he didn't get rid of them, and under Biden. And they've been promoted right up through the entire nervous system, these institutions. And then you can only put two people in charge to fix this. So in one way, it's unreasonable for us to be demanding too much of the small teams that are doing this work. On the other hand, those teams need public pressure all the time to keep them focused, because these guys are working 16 hours a day, sometimes more, and they have to delegate to somebody, and the people they have to delegate to are the careerists who are inside.
So you're saying there's a chance. Because I look at it from that perspective, and look, I've run companies, large companies that I built myself, right, from the ground up, and I know what it's like to have to, to be very patient in how you grow and do things to cut out cancers that develop along the way that change the ethos. And right now we're in the ethos stage where our ethos is rotted to the core, like the whole culture, the whole ethics of what we do as a country. And they rotted out the rest of the world first so that it would say that you're crazy if you try to fix it, right? And so then you have people that believe this stuff. And then I think to myself, I actually might think to myself, Joe, are you the crazy one? Like, maybe you're crazy.
We all wonder about that sometimes, and that's what they want us to think. Because you're so out of the mainstream, there's something wrong with you. Well, I'm just asking questions that people don't want to answer. I mean, when you think of it, you've had this bipartisan consensus since the end of World War II.
Yeah.
The United States is a global power, and we have to be because of the Soviet Union and Soviet expansionism. It made sense. It was logical at the time. We had to fight the expansion of Soviet communism over natural resources, over sea lines of communication, trade routes, military bases, that whole thing, entire populations. That was important for us to do. But the whole time we also had traitors on the inside of the system who were working for the Soviets, who were communist agents, who were communist sympathizers, who were not, agents are under control. Sympathizers just go along because they want to do it and get along, but it really amounts to the same thing. And when they're populating our foreign service and they're populating our military officer corps, just because they wear uniforms doesn't mean they're patriots. Even because they served in combat doesn't make them patriots necessarily.
No, we're seeing that now. I mean, you have Kelly out of Arizona.
Yeah,
an astronaut, served in the military, and I mean, he's the guy literally called for. I mean, I don't even know how you square it. He called for sedition by the U.S. military against the president, sitting president.
Yeah, and he's still subject to UCMJ. Somebody like him ought to be busted and brought back before a military tribunal and tried in a military court for violating UCMJ, because if he's still liable to that, then he's breaking military law and he's subject to military discipline. We're not using those tools very often at all, and we should be.
Okay, so let's do this. I want to play this video for a reason. So in that time that I spent over in the Middle East and Africa, I read every book on how to read people. I got really good at it. I got good at being able to measure the expressions of every individual. Now, the reason why I did it when I was over there is because I wanted to know if people were going to try and cut my head off. I wanted to be able to test on those micro expressions on whether or not they were just placating me or if they really believed what they were saying, right? And I mean, I became really good. And I also became really good at telling people, I mean, as clear as day, like, you're full of shit. This is one of the women that, the congresswoman who called for President Trump, for the military not to listen to President Trump. So this is Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, former CIA officer. Earlier today, President Trump threatened myself and a number of other service and veteran lawmakers with arrest, trial, and death because he didn't agree with a video we put out this week. This really isn't about those of us who made the video. This is about who we are as Americans and how we're going to engage with people who we disagree with. I would hope that people of all backgrounds, Democrat, Republican, Independent, would agree that threatening death for people you disagree with is beyond the pale of who we are as Americans. I love this country. It has given me everything, everything. And I refuse to believe that this is the new normal. I refuse to believe that we're going to use fear and intimidation against people we disagree with, and I'm not going to be forced away from speaking up on behalf of my country. I swore an oath to the Constitution many times, most recently less than a year ago as a senator. To the Constitution, not to any one man, not to any one president. And I abide by that oath. For me, I believe in the power of this country and that we are better than our current politics represent, and I refuse to be intimidated out of defending the country I love.
Mike, you're not a stupid man. You're really smart. You know what microexpressions are. You know what they are, even if... Okay. And you have an instinct. And tell me what you saw.
Well, in psychology, they call that projection. Here you have a former intelligence officer as part of a whole cadre of intelligence officers who were all recruited within about a year of one another to run for public office. This has never happened in our history. So you've got woke spooks running for public office, wrapping themselves in the flag and the Constitution, and saying how many times they've sworn loyalty and all this other stuff. And then them with their assassination culture denouncing President Trump for whatever comment that he made.
It was just a disagreement, though, Mike. That's what she said. It was just a disagreement. That we just disagree with each other.
Yeah, and he wants to murder us because we disagree. Why can't he just be civil like we are?
But they're not civil. So when she said she loves this country, there's a lot of things going on in that. I had to slow it down and watch it over and over again. I put it inside my computer, watched it back. She smiles, but then she also has this disgusted look on her face, as in, I don't really support the Constitution. These are the micro expressions I think that are really important.
Yeah.
And this is my problem, is that our country is being run by demons that are getting their information from someone, right? Somebody is pulling these strings. Someone. The Wizard of Oz was a real movie that talks about the real part of our society, which is there's people behind a curtain. Does President Trump arrest her and the other 5 people? Does he have them charged in a military court? Does he charge them with sedition? Can he rip the Band-Aid off and do what's right? That video, for anyone that has a psychology degree, I know because I called a friend, I was like, watch this. And he goes, oh my gosh, she shouldn't have done this video. His comment, shouldn't have done this video. I said, why? He says, because she's openly being dishonest. And it basically is a calling card.
Yeah. Well, you can see where they smile when they're trying to identify. They've got sort of a trust me kind of expression. She keeps her head down a little bit in the video and then looks up out of the top of her eyes. That means she's being deceptive. Yeah. And then she's got that little bitter expression when she talks about how patriotic she is and how dare anybody question her.
Yeah.
And then you go through the whole rest of the video. There's another congresswoman in the video, Maggie Goodlander, Democrat of New Hampshire. She was just elected a year ago. She's Jake Sullivan's wife. So Biden's national security advisor's wife, who's now a member of Congress. Now, think of the power around Jake Sullivan and the forces around Jake Sullivan being manifested now through his wife as a member of Congress.
There's only one way to look at it, and it's a cartel. Like, we are dealing in an active cartel that is designed to steal. All right, I'm going to say something, and you tell me what you blink twice if you can't answer. It's almost as if they're operating a shadow government inside of our government right now, and that what we see is not actually operating, and that this country right now is in an active place where it's just one more turn of the trigger before we lose everything.
Yeah, well, you can see the shadow government. It's not an unreasonable thing to call it, because that's really what it is. This is, if you swear to uphold the Constitution, then you swear to recognize the executive authority of the president. So anybody who's working in the executive branch as a CIA officer or a military officer must, by virtue of swearing to the Constitution, do what the president says as long as it's legal. Doesn't matter if you like it or not. You have to do it as long as it's legal. And what she's saying is, I don't like it. And others in that video are pushing even further, saying that, we have to act against him. And then beyond that, we have to have the intelligence community, quote, protect our country against the elected president. And then the other extension that we've already seen before, you have to have military officers defy the constitutional authority of the president. So they are arguing to burn the country in order to save it.
So how does a normal person fight against it? How does a normal... What's that?
We all have a role to play because a lot of these are elected officials, like these members of Congress. They're spooks. They're the governor of Virginia now, the new governor-elect of Virginia. She's another one of these spooks. And remember when she was challenged by her Republican lieutenant governor about the attorney general, Democrat, who was fantasizing about murdering his political opponent and then murdering the guy's children in front of the mother.
And he won.
He won.
He didn't win, no. Stolen elections everywhere.
But she won. Yeah, correct. Yeah. But the governor candidate won, and she would not even answer the question, and she would just be silent, and she made all kinds of faces. Here she is, a CIA person who will not denounce political murder if it's in her own party. And you have this assassination culture that's taking place everywhere. You have, Chuck Schumer threatening Supreme Court justices because they issued a ruling that he didn't like.
How about Charlie Kirk? Killed Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk.
Because he
and
was slowing
and Schumer and Obama and everybody else were, poor Charlie Kirk. Let's tone down our differences now and make sure this doesn't happen again. They don't mean it.
No,
they could have just in that video that you just showed.
So then how do we, as we look at that, and we just put a bow on it, because I know you have a hard out in 5 minutes, and I got a couple more questions, and I want you to be able to talk more about your book, which, by the way, I just ordered on Audible, so I just asked her to put it on Audible. I assume it's on Audible, right?
It is.
Okay, so I just asked Lynn to put it on Audible so I could have it next. I haven't read this much in a fury. I have to thank Tommy, because I haven't read this much or been this engaged in reading this much I usually read a book a week. I'm up to like 2 or 3 books. Like, I'm staying up all night reading books. And you guys are scaring the hell out of me, so I'm looking forward to reading your book. What do we do, Mike? Like, I'm building a fraternity. Is that going to be enough? Do we have to have tens of thousands of people? Do we have to push over the institutions on a state-by-state level? What are we talking about here?
You've got to return a lot of power back to the states. You have to return the power back to the states. And if the federal government doesn't do it, the states have to take it. You see some of them, like Texas, already starting, designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist group. That's a state initiative that the president has not done, even though he said it in his last term that he was going to do it. Had he declared the Muslim Brotherhood terrorism in his first term, we wouldn't have all these jihadists taking political power in New York and elsewhere this term, because so many of them are Muslim Brotherhood. So there's all this foot dragging that's going on. So the states have to take more authority back. That's one thing. Second, we can't be left with an FBI legacy. It has to be dismantled. It has to be split apart. It has to be reduced in size, with a lot of that power sent back to the states. And really the most important things that the FBI is supposed to do, like fighting spies, counterintelligence, fighting public corruption, those are the most crooked parts of the FBI. So those things have to be pulled out of the Bureau completely, and we need new standalone public corruption agency and a counter-spy agency that has nothing to do with the former FBI and its mentality. And the same with the CIA. Chop it down, have one separate analytical service that collects intelligence and analyzes it, and another really tiny, really elite covert ops service. You don't need this giant bureaucracy.
Yeah. All right, so tell us what we expect from your book. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Big Intel is designed to show, how did wokeness take over our intelligence community? How did it become politicized? So it goes back, takes a counterintelligence perspective, and traces back this chain of custody, going all the way back to 1922, before we even had an intelligence service. Going back to when J. Edgar Hoover was a young man, one of the first things he did during World War I was round up communists and anarchists and send them back to Russia. Imagine had he succeeded in that. No wonder he was so vilified early on. The ACLU was founded to stop him from doing that. So it goes back to that history and shows how we became the way we have today as a country, and how the FBI and the CIA became the way they did, and then what we can do about it.
No question. Mike, I think we're going to war. I think that we're already in a war right now. It's warm, but I think that there are a lot of people that have had enough of it's like the one thing that breaks the camel's back. I almost feel like we're in a civil war now. I would love to hand back power to the states, except for states like Colorado, California, Oregon, Washington. I think you know where I'm going, because they've been captured. And then when you have technology, you have the ability to make it look like you're the bigger voice. But if you go on the street and talk to people and have conversations, the laws of big numbers show you that most people don't support what the state is actually doing, which means that nobody's voting these people into office. They're actually being selected using systems of fraud in order to do it.
Yeah. But I think states should be allowed to collapse under their own weight. Sometimes if there's a natural disaster or something, everybody needs to pitch in to help them out. But on places like California, Oregon, elsewhere, let them collapse under their own weight. I don't care. Just don't let them flood into my state.
What's your state?
New Hampshire.
Oh, it's getting better. I mean, you have some actually decent leaders, but
yeah,
you have others that are not so
state. It's a solid Second Amendment state. It's just a weird state for politics. And Maggie Goodlander is my member of Congress.
Oh boy,
the one who's in that video.
Yeah. Well, this is the part where I think that if we don't rip the Band-Aid off. You said this before, President Trump has an opportunity just not to give a shit, right? To really just get to it, gut it.
Yep.
But he's got to, that takes a special type of understanding that, in order to clean out the root canal, you got to clean it out. You got to, you got to be fully committed. And what I see are half measures. And the problem with half measures is that half measures never lead to the success of an operation ever. It never has in the history of the world.
Yeah, it has to be just torn right off. And the man knows how to do it. He might surprise us. He might say, I needed the FBI to do these jobs, and now I'm going to just bust it apart and put something together for the next generation. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he did it. Joe, it's been good to see you.
Good to see you, brother. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Again. All right, take care.
Bye.
Man, great conversation. I got to tell you, I think he understands more about where we are collectively related to the intelligence community, the apparatus. He said it's never before happened that all these guys come in and they run for office that are part of the CIA, which leads you to believe that if we start looking at the USAID and the CIA and its influence in the USAID, which, by the way, I wasn't the smartest guy in the room back in 2008, 2009, 2010 when I was overseas, but I was like, oh my gosh, USAID, it's all run by the intelligence community. And I was a relatively young guy back then. And so I remember getting on this BBC show, and it was with Jeffrey Sachs, going against him on that show. Jeffrey Sachs that now is the expert, intelligence expert. He was the expert on financial and economic stability in Africa and how they could eliminate poverty. And they had this thing called the Millennium Project. And that was just a front for the CIA, which you trace Jeffrey Sachs back to Columbia University. And Tucker Carlson interviewed Jeffrey Sachs. And I went and watched the interview 2 or 3 times because I was like, this is eerie. This reminds me of the videos that I would watch about Jeffrey Sachs, which, by the way, have been stripped from the internet, about his involvement in solving supply chain issues for food and, the milk distribution modeling and everything else for how did they create success for Africa. And it was just a bunch of bullshit. But the same thing was happening when Jeffrey Sachs was talking about our foreign policy, what was happening in Ukraine. He has no ability to tell you that. And this is where I started to go, holy shit. Like, you can't unsee it. You can't unsee the fact that none of these people have any they have no experience. Mamdani has never accomplished a thing in his life. He has a music video that's 3 years old. Go check it out. Go check it out. Please tell me what Mamdani has done, period, in his life. What he's accomplished in his life just once, where just anything that he's accomplished. I'm going to say the same thing about Alexis Kardashian Patel. What has she accomplished in her life? Anything. Show me anything. You know, I was looking at some of the stuff that I've accomplished over the last 30 years, besides a catastrophic business failure, which I did. I had one of those. Oh man, it was catastrophic. It was awesome. Best thing that ever happened to me. I learned a lot from it. I learned what not to do and what to do, and how to make sure that I never bet on double green zeros ever again in my life. And I always have a plan. So no matter what, make sure you're on the right path. You always have to have a plan. You always have to have a hatch where you can pop up, take out the enemy. But the other day I was looking at I was looking at Bitcoin and stocks, and more specifically DJT, Trump's media conglomerate, and Truth Social. So I walked through Truth Social and I looked at what they're doing. And they're all trying to chase the same thing. It's nothing special. I mean, it's so diluted out there when you talk about Public Square and DJT, and I think it's called Pew Pew or whatever, Grab a Gun. And I look at everything that we do on our side, and it is what I call tech light. I mean, Elon Musk is not a conservative. He's a libertarian. He supported President Trump because he looked at the left and said, you guys are nuts. Because they weren't really left, they were just bad people. And if you look at all the other things that are out there, like what I call the Cool Kids Club, they had to capture media first, which means they had to have the involvement of the intelligence community. The FBI and the CIA have created more billionaires in this world, and probably 99% of them are created by the intelligence community. And even if you go back and look at someone like Patrick Byrne, who ran Overstock.com, you know, what was his calling card? His calling card is that he was a secure asset for the CIA. And so I think that you could probably not have a conversation with anyone in that world. What happened at Twitter? Twitter is, you know, Jack, whatever his face is, was deeply embedded with CIA agents, FBI agents that left those places and went to work inside of these deals. So you're a CIA agent, and you could check my math on this. They went to the CIA and said, you know what, I'm going to leave the CIA and I'm going to go work at Facebook. I'm going to leave the CIA and I'm going to go work at Twitter. You think they did it because they were like, oh yeah, I want to work for a social media company because I think it was cooler, and before I was working with the CIA. No, they were directed to go work for one of those organizations and to cut ties with the CIA, cut ties with the FBI, at least on paper. But they never left. This is how you can tell how cartels are built. This is how organized crime is built. In the 1920s and 1930s, you would have people that belonged inside of the mob families that would go work for the police department. It's the reason why they were allowed to act with impunity. Today, those tentacles are much more ingrained. They're inside of our judiciary, they're inside of our legislative office, inside of our executive branch. You know, President Trump that comes along, this has been my biggest fear, is that, hey, we're headed toward a place where it's getting hot. Like we're going to war. President Trump is going to have to pull the lever at some point very quickly to rip the Band-Aid off, because I don't see another choice. But what we're going through right now is directly correlated to a coup. It happened in Mongolia. It happened in Serbia. You could look at what happened in Brazil. It just happened. What happened in Argentina. Venezuela is probably the greatest indication of this, where in 2004, the country was captured by Hugo Chavez in a fraudulent election using the same machines that we have now in our United States, even though we said that what they did there, we knew what they did there, but we didn't say it loud enough that we didn't let them come on our shores and buy out 17 states and the District of Columbia. And then even when we found out there was a problem in 2009 with our election systems, we just said, hey, you just have to sell it to someone else. And even though we were talking about improprieties and things that were done inside of those that was basically criminal activity, we also didn't hold anybody accountable and we didn't arrest anyone because we just said, it just looks bad. But we fast forward from that time, 2005, to where we're at 20 years later. And we're on the slipperiest slope you've ever seen towards a coup in our nation. Same one that happened to multiple nations around the world. And with the same people. And inside of these stolen elections, what Mike just said is never before has it ever happened before where CIA agents then started running for office and taking over as basically a pig in a blanket. You polish a turd, put it out there, because ideologically they needed those positions just like they needed the judiciary. And I asked Mike the simple question, like, what are we going to do? And I'm sitting here working the problem with you, recognizing how vile of a position we are in right now. We're in a bad place. We're not in a bad place. We're in a horrible place. I mean, think about where we are right now as it relates to just all the things you can't see. That is where they attack you. They look around the perimeter and it's like they're playing a big game of Dungeons and Dragons, where they have a board in front of them and they're just moving pieces and they're like, okay, we have to be able to capture this piece because this is the strongest. And if you look at what they did in 2021, the media is probably the largest infector of this. But if you didn't have the large organizations like Google and Facebook and the walled gardens that shut off President Trump's voice, and then on top of doing that, stood up the fallacies of the New York Times and all of these other bad actors that are again tied back to the CIA, we wouldn't have this problem to begin with. We wouldn't be dealing with any of these issues right now. And I'm not sure that any of you understand just how severe the problem is. And some of you do. But I asked Mike how we could solve it. We can't. We can't solve it because it's so pervasive. Who's the CIA agent? This is where I get to the fact that everyone that we're talking about have never accomplished a thing in their entire effing life. They've never accomplished anything. What have they accomplished? One of the reasons why I don't go through and talk about education and all that stuff is because I don't value it. I'll take classes and I'll do things and I'll go to different schools and I'm always invested or looking at how do I find out more? How do I gain more knowledge? How do I learn about how tech stacks work? How do I learn about how to develop and use math in order to build systems? But I look at things that come out of like Columbia and all these universities. I even look at what happens when you come out of the Cal Berkeley. Some of the strangest, most corrupt, evil people in the world have come out of Cal Berkeley. I mean, it's like a deviant's playground. I'm going to step away from this a little bit. I got too much other stuff to talk to you about, but I am concerned. I'm going to play this. I'm going to go back to Tina Peters for a minute. And then I'm going to go back to the fact that President Trump needs to charge people with sedition. He needs to sign the Insurrection Act. He'll have me and millions of other Americans. I'm going to play this about Tina because my next question is going to be really simple. What are you willing to do to protect your fellow American? Are you willing to gather at the steps of Polis's office, are you willing to give up anything other than 2 minutes of time to put out a Facebook post? Are you willing to rattle the fence of Jared Polis' actual home? Are you willing to make sure that that man has no peace if he doesn't free Tina Peters? Can I even ask that question? And everybody goes, wow, Joe, you're calling for violence. I'm not. And you know what? Crazy people show up and they act violently. I'm not responsible for their behavior any more than I'm responsible for the behavior of anyone else that does something wrong. But the fact that this man is able to eat and stuff his fat gay face with whatever he wants to stuff it with, while Tina Peters rots in jail, and then you have people that write stuff that they wrote, when all she did was uncover the fraud that exists in this country. It is not just fraud, it is absolute proof. I don't want to hear anybody's bullshit about the 4 reports. I'm yet to have one expert, one, even that Haldeman piece of shit, come forward and try to explain what was found. Oh, it's just a glitch. But then you had the whistleblowers that came forward and said, the system is designed to glitch. I want you to hear this. This is Brian Kennedy talking about Tina Peters. President Trump needs to go in there. He needs to send in whoever he has to send in and get Tina Peters out of jail. You don't get to do what they did to Tina Peters. And this is what I mean by we're at war. And I don't want to become the very thing that I'm fighting against, but I'll be damned if I'm going to sit back and watch it happen. Play it.
I'm calling on President Trump, and I did that in an X post last night on Getter, not because she's 70, not because she's a Gold Star mom, and not because she's likely to die in prison, but because Tina Peters is a witness to the 2020 theft of an election. The president, as chief magistrate, could send the marshals into the Colorado prison. There are federal custodial witness protection programs that you could put Tina Peters under that would supersede Colorado law. You could take her to Washington, D.C. You could put her up in, this would be what I would do anyway, put her up in Blair House for a few weeks while she recovers. Then I would depose somebody or put someone from the Justice Department or the Assistant Secretary over at DHS, Dave Harvilitz, and I would use her as a witness as we're investigating the 2020 election. She is a witness to that. It looks to me and to many others like there was foreign interference in that 2020 election. There are national security implications to that and to any future elections. And so the perfectly sensible thing to do would be to use the power of the law such that the president has today as chief magistrate and get her out of that solitary confinement. Not to free her, don't supersede Colorado law in that sense, put her to work. She knows things. She fought for those things. And use those parts of your government, Mr. President, that want to investigate the 2020 election, which you yourself believe was stolen. Use Tina Peters to help with it.
Sorry you had to see the fat face of Steve Bannon. I still think he's a little Epstein prick. And I give nobody that hangs out with pedophiles, calls them friends. You don't get to be a friend of mine if you're a pedophile, ever. You hurt a child, yeah, I got no use for you, none. So, and there's a lot of reasons why I don't have any use for him. Goldman Sachs, golden boy. He's just one of us. He's not one of us. I don't dislike Steve Bannon. I think he's the biggest fraudulent piece of shit this side of the planet. That's what I think of Steve Bannon, but I digress. I got plenty I could say about that. Anyway. Here's the problem with what Brian Kennedy said. He did it on War Room. And by the way, I think that our systems are captured. They get to decide who is the arbiter of reality, who gets to speak, who is the ones that get the seat at the table. They get to decide. They build these little influencer groups and they stack them up with people that follow them, and they make it harder for other people to have followers. And when they get followers, then they just shut down their accounts. The problem with Brian is that he talks about the 2020 election. So let me just tell you something about the 2020 election. The 2020 election is not an anomaly of elections. The 2020 election is just like any other election, only because of the pervasiveness of President Trump being a popular candidate, they couldn't steal it without showing the fraud. But they've been stealing elections across the board. I talked to George Brockler, who ran for the AG in 2018. Now, in 2018, in Colorado, by the way, in 2018, I did a bunch of campaign stuff, did a bunch of data for him, sent out a bunch of stuff for him. I was committed to George. I wanted him to win. Super good. He was the DA for District 18 in Colorado. No nonsense when it comes to crime. And yet, I could call him up and talk to him about, someone that I was trying to help that happened to be in District 18, and he would listen, and his people would listen. So anyway, he was slated. He was up by about 4 points. Now, I did all the data, and I'm like, there's no way that he loses. He's going to win this hands down. He lost by 1.5%. It's impossible. Like it's not even remotely possible in 2018 that George Brockler lost the AG's office. True story. And I could walk down the line and show you that this happened across the board, not just with him, but with other things that we were able to look at with experts and other elections dating all the way back to 2012. And this was the honeypot, and I said to him after 2018, I was like, George, it's impossible that you lost. He's like, yeah, I know. Now, we didn't even think about election fraud. I was like, bro, it's not possible. I went back and looked at my text messages, and I was like, it's impossible that you lost. And my data is not off. I'm telling you, it's not off. And I went back and looked at all the data, and I tried calling him. I was like, look, George, you won in 2018. And he just does not want to hear it. He's like this. And the more and more data comes out, and I keep sending it to him, because he's actually the DA in a different district now, District 23. And I send him texts all the time. I'm like, you need to run for AG again. We're going to get rid of the machines and mail-in ballots. You need to run. You'll win hands down. El Paso County is in Colorado. And just to piggyback on what's said about with Brian Kennedy, here's a post that's up that I put up that said, it's an act of war. Let's put it up. It's an act of war, Mr. President. The systems used to steal the voice of Americans. This is happening everywhere. Stop listening to the shit people who tell you nothing to see here. This is an active coup, much like we saw in Venezuela, Ukraine, Mongolia, Brazil, and the list goes on. This is the insurrection. Now, this is Peter Berninger's post. And in this post, if you want to go ahead and open that up, El Paso County, Colorado, November 4th, 2025, election results being investigated. Canvassers refusing to sign off on certification. Numbers are not matching up. Attorneys being sent in from the Secretary of State's office tomorrow morning. Bug in the software found, according to the Secretary of State, November 19th, 2025, email of the clerk of that county to a citizen. Let me just read it to you. This was to a citizen. The CSV files you mentioned are from the Secretary of State's offices are loaded onto the ENR website. These reports are not generated at the county level, nor do they reside on our websites. This is a Secretary of State item. Yesterday, during the risk-limited audit, one of our Canvas board members recognized major differences between the El Paso County and the Secretary of State's CSV files that were on the website you mentioned. Most of the numbers between the two reports did not match up, and it raised concerns, and rightfully so. My office reached out to the Secretary of State's office immediately and shared our findings. Earlier this morning, the Secretary of State's office found the cause of the report for all 64 counties' errors, and below is their explanation. Ready for this? ENR does not report the ballots cast total for individual contests accurately in a downloadable summary report when they are precinct splits. ENR reports the total ballots cast at the whole precincts instead of the precinct split totals. The screenshot below is from the El Paso County results file that was uploaded to ENR. Duplicate rows based on precinct name and split name were removed, and the file filter was applied to show only the precincts that contain the commissioner contest. For example, in precinct 15101621091, only 306 ballots should be applied to the commissioner contest ballots cast total, while 1,237 ballots are actually applied. Whew. At this time, it is not known if the Secretary, if the SOE software can develop the capability to report these totals accurately at the contest level when there are precinct splits. From the summary report, we no longer be available to. So from on, the summary report will no longer be available to be downloaded. So their thing is, let's take it down. I will follow up with the Secretary of State regarding this matter. I believe once you put something out there for the citizens, you cannot retract it, and there needs to be a commitment to make the necessary software changes. Steve Slicker, El Paso County County Clerk and Recorder. More to come on Breaking Story. Okay. They're not even hiding the fraud. Not even a little bit. And this is my issue, is that we take whatever they say and we say that's the truth. They are the arbiter of reality. You are not allowed to question them, slave. All right, let's move on from it. You saw that video that was put out by Senator Slotkin, the CIA agent. What you didn't see is the video of the Democrats telling the military, signaling to people in the military to disobey direct orders from our commander-in-chief. Play it.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
And the intelligence community.
who take risks each day.
To keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
And intelligence community professionals
against American citizens. Like us. You all swore an oath.
To protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
But from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
you must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army,
Our Navy,
The Air Force.
your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Sedition. Treason. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better example of that than what you just saw. And notice that 2 out of those 6 people that were on there worked for the CIA, worked for intelligence. They now run for office. And this is what President Trump said, by the way. Let's go ahead and put up the truth. This is really bad and dangerous to our country. The words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors. Lock them up. It is sedition. But the problem is that we don't have people that are in office that are willing to make the hard decisions. They're willing to give air to the ridiculous. We deal with the ridiculous every day. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do at all. I want to play again Senator Slotkin responding to the post by President Trump saying that you should be arrested, tried, and if found guilty, hung. I want to point out that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. President Trump was nearly assassinated. And we don't need to talk about the assassinations that have happened to average everyday Americans or what they've done to Tina Peters. And we were able to find very clearly that the DOJ was working in concert with the AG's office and that the full weight of the Biden administration with the radical leftists in the state of Colorado was used to crush the 70-year-old Gold Star mom. I want to play you again what Senator Slotkin, the CIA agent, said. Play it.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin, Senator from Michigan, former CIA officer. Earlier today, President Trump threatened myself and a number of other service and veteran lawmakers with arrest, trial, and death because he didn't agree with a video we put out this week. This really isn't about those of us who made the video. This is about who we are as Americans and how we're going to engage with people who we disagree with. I would hope that people of all backgrounds, Democrat, Republican, Independent, would agree that threatening death for people you disagree with is beyond the pale of who we are as Americans. I love this country. It has given me everything, everything. And I refuse to believe that this is the new normal. I refuse to believe that we're going to use fear and intimidation against people we disagree with. And I'm not going to be forced away from speaking up on behalf of my country. I swore an oath to the Constitution many times, most recently less than a year ago as a senator. To the Constitution, not to any one man, not to any one president. And I abide by that oath. For me, I believe in the power of this country and that we are better than our current politics represent. And I refuse to be intimidated out of defending the country I love.
President Trump didn't disagree with the video. It had nothing to do with it. He didn't disagree with it at all. What they said in that video were, you have a right to basically stand up and say, I'm not going to follow these orders. They basically called for the military to defect, commit treason against the country. You don't think we're going to war? You don't think that we're in a place right now where the radical left is hanging on with everything they have on the state side? You don't think that stateside, meaning that the states have been captured, California is captured. Most people are not in support of Gavin Newsom. And if you think I'm wrong, walk the street. If you're in California, walk the street and tell me how many people you can find that support Gavin Newsom. Do the experiment. If you think people believe in or would elect Mamdani, I was in New York City. I was in there for the last couple of days. I would just ask people the question, so what do you think of Mamdani? This is crazy. I asked the Uber drivers, what do you think of Mamdani? They're like, this is nuts. Nobody wants that guy. And if you know anything about Ubers in and around New York City, it doesn't take long to figure out that most of them are foreigners. I had a Mexican guy. It was on my Uber. I was like, what do you think of ICE? He goes, it took me 13 years to get my citizenship. I don't think anybody should come here. I said, and it affects part of my family. But, you know, what do you expect them to do when you have gangs? And then talked about the fact that they have gangs in Mexico, in South and Central America. And the reason why people come from there to here is because of the gangs. And now the gangs are here. There's no difference between them and here, there and here, here and there. And in Mexico, the people are rising up against the cartels. And it just so happens that the Mexican leader is a Jewish woman. Imagine that, a Jewish woman. So this is what I had to say about that woman I said, the woman was CIA. She said this is about a disagreement. It's not. It's about treason. They've captured the language because they are demons. This is war, and she should be tried for treason. But he has a bunch of people around him. The president has a bunch of people around him that will tell him, no, you can't do that. You can't arrest these 50,000 people. But if we don't start arresting these 50,000 people, if we don't start locking up them en masse, then we are going to war. I mean, they control the financial systems, the stock market. They put their fingers on everything, and we have to beg for scraps. You have to beg for it. That's how free you are in this country. That's how free you are with free elections. Almost all of our problems that we have in our country in this world are manufactured by really bad people. All right. The Somali community has been, I just want to go through a few other things that maybe you didn't know about, just in case you thought that we were, heading in a positive direction. President Trump's been in office for 10 months. I don't expect miracles in 10 months. I expect something. By this time in Biden's administration, over 800 Americans were in a gulag. And judges were slamming them for walking on the grass. And using case law that was found to be unconstitutional, 1512. And remember, the state of Colorado said that President Trump couldn't be on the ballot because he had committed sedition. They said that he had created an uprising, a insurrection. So the Supreme Court of Colorado ruled that President Trump could not be on the ballot. It was overturned 9-0. How are we not in a war, Mr. President? How in the world do you look at where we are and say to yourself, look, I had to go back and watch. I had to go back and watch The Apprentice. And I looked at a bunch of videos and I wanted to see, okay, how did President Trump handle this? And I look at what's happening right now, and I know for a fact that President Trump is being more measured because he does not want, he is held captive by a media apparatus that basically just makes it up as he goes along. So if he fires certain people that are ineffective in that position, it will turn into a bloodbath. And then you'll have to explain it, no, you made a bad decision. But there's so much in the political world that is run by politics of the thirst for power and money, and that they lie and cheat on both sides. And then you find out when they get in the position that they don't have any courage, Kardashian Patel. But let me tell you what's happening in Minnesota, in the Somali community. The largest funder of Al-Shabaab is a Minnesota taxpayer. This is unbelievable. Let me read some of this to you really quick. This is, I don't even know, I actually don't know what to think about this. Minnesota is drowning in fraud. Billions of taxpayer dollars have been stolen during the administration of Tim Walz alone. Democratic state officials overseeing one of the most generous welfare regimes in the country are asleep at the switch. No, they're not. This is all purposefully being done. You act like this is like, well, surprise, and oh, somebody did. You have this many scandals. You have this many scandals because it's designed to be this scandalous. And let me go through this real quick. The media, duty-bound to progressive pieties, refuse to connect the dots. In many cases, fraud has allegedly been perpetrated by members of Minnesota's sizable Somali community. Federal counterterrorism sources confirm that millions of dollars of stolen funds have been sent back to Somalia, where they ultimately landed in the hands of the terror group Al-Shabaab. One confidential source put it, the largest funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. Imagine if all your money went back to Somalia. Well, it does. Our investigation shows what happens when a tribal mindset meets a bleeding heart bureaucracy, when imported clan royalties collide with a political class too timid to offend. All right, take it down. September 18th, by the way. September 18th, Joe Thomas was the U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota. He said a vast majority of the HSS programs are, in fact, fraudulent. He announced criminal indictments for HSS fraud on Mukhtar Hassan Adin, Mustafa Dayad Ali, Khalid Ahmad Dayed, Abdatif Ta, Mohammed, Christopher Adjeo Falad, Emmanuel Alphabet. I can't say his name. 6 of these people are members of Minnesota's Somali community. Whew. So I want to show you this. This is a video of Somali community leader talking about jihad. Play it.
كان قابل دونه وحن سو عشرين Somali
Word jihad will only be Somaliland, but will also be.
What we want محاربنا.
What we want now is in this jihad. We want unity. When? Now. Not tomorrow. Oh, President of Somalia, do you see us? Are you watching us? We will fund the jihad. Don't worry about the money. My last important message, because I have some scholars behind me. My brother Sheikh Ibrahim Bashir started was. This president I know will be hard for him. President of Somalia must call for your jihad. I will need jihad. Follow along. They're not hiding it anymore. I mean, it's as clear as day. It's right in front of us. All right, I'm going to end with a laugh. It's pretty heavy right now because I want to just get back to business. I think all of you do, right? 2020 basically stole a bunch of your joy because now you can see it. You can see all the things that are happening right now. It's hard to ignore. Let me see, send me something. Yeah, just play it. Play it.
This man is wanted for embarrassing the FBI. He is considered armed with facts which are dangerous to the director.
He was last seen living in this woman's head.
Authorities say he entered via a gate that was being analyzed.
We had our team put together this recreation of what it might look like in there.
Julie Kelly just sent me her classified documents viewer. Would you look at that? Nothing to see here.
This is outrageous!
Oh, well, isn't that something? We'd like to thank our team for putting that together for us.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have the Viva Fry appearance? Do you have that? It was pretty bad. You get a chance to go watch it, go check out Viva Fry. He's always amazing, and his legal analysis is spot on. The thing that Julie Kelly is doing is running. This is how you know it's an op, right? So Julie Kelly's going after Steve Baker. Steve Baker is the one with the blaze. He's the one that uncovered the pipe bomber, said that nobody's actually listening or talking about the pipe bomber anymore, but they are. And the FBI has the information that should result in the arrest of the person that planted those pipe bombs, but this is how you know that it's a controlled narrative and controlled media. Much like every time we turn around and there's something that happens where someone on the left does something, they cover it up. And we want to talk about Denver. I could make a list of it. And yeah, we sit here and we just have to take it. We just have to take it. I think we're done taking it. Are you done taking it? I'm done taking it. I'm done. And we know for a fact because they charged Enrique for sedition. And they charged Joe Biggs with sedition. And because they did all of this stuff, they were trying to dismantle people that would get together and do something. Well, what happens when it gets so big that even the left, the right, doesn't matter what political party you're associated with, you just had enough. You're taking my money and you're handing it out to people that are just trying to hurt me. And that's in essence what they're doing. Let me look at some of the notes here, or some of the comments. The purpose of the militia is to defend against foreign invaders and marauding tribes. It's our inalienable right to defend our homes and citizens against the incursion. Frey on here. What? Free on here. Yeah, go check it out. Viva Frei. Do we have a link to Viva Frei? I don't know. Do we have a link we can put in there? Put up his channel. All right. Here's what we pray for. We pray for the fact that you guys have a great weekend. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do tonight. You ready? You guys going to make fun of me? Let's see if we can put it up. I haven't, since I was 12 years old, gone to a wrestling event. You know what I'm talking about? There we go. So tonight, I'm going to a WWE SmackDown. I was invited. I go, I gotta go. I haven't been since I was 12 years old. So in honor of, to honor Hulk Hogan, who passed away, I'm going to go and watch the event tonight. So it's, let me tell you what they're doing tonight. They have a SmackDown for a women's war game match, which is unbelievable. It looks fun. And don't judge me, because I'm taking my nephews and my nieces there, and we're going to go watch wrestling. Oh, haven't heard, Joe. Did you get an elk? Okay, let me tell you about my elk trip. I'll do that really quick, too. Oh, Susan, you have a good weekend as well. Okay. No, I did not see an elk. Now, there was a few times I saw a mountain goat, so I almost shot it and said that it identified as an elk. Then I saw a bunch of deer that tried to run in front of the car and commit suicide when I went down to have some dinner, and they almost identified as an elk. It got so desperate that I saw a rabbit. I was going to shoot the rabbit because they're not protected, put some antlers on it, take a picture of it. And then we were in the middle of the road, and I saw this raccoon that's in the middle of the road. I was going to take a picture of it. I went through all of this stuff, took pictures of all this stuff, and I was like, look, I just got to shoot something. And then, so I didn't get to do that. And then I was told I couldn't shoot anything. So, yeah. Anyway, no elk. Jake Lang insinuated Viva is feminine. I don't want to talk about Jake Lang. Jackalope. Yeah, we'll do that. Any questions you have other than that? That one that really hurt me on my elk hunt? None? Hey, you going to go tonight, Patrick? You want to go see some wrestling? Yeah, I'll be the only one there. Jake is on a stunt tour. Yeah, Jake's tour sounds like, yeah, it was a great trip, though. I had a great trip. It's pretty awesome. It was awesome. But Jake, I saw all the stuff with Jake getting on the stage and saying, with all due respect, get the F out to the mayor of Dearborn. Yeah, Joe, when are you going to start talking about some water? Ooh. Verge, send me an email, if you would, to joe@untamednation.com. Send me an email, I'll explain that. Have you started drinking again? No, I did not start drinking again. Do you want me to start drinking again? I'm not drinking. I'm good. No alcohol for me. Well, every now and then. All right. Show's over. Let's pray. Father God, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for in the middle of all this, trying to work the problem, trying to get through some of the things we have to deal with on a daily basis. Father, I just ask that you, and we are thankful for Mike. We're thankful for the work that Mike did, the book that he wrote. And I'm not discouraged, Father. I don't think anybody's discouraged. I think we have hope. We know that at the end of the day, it is up to you. We're just at that place right now where it's a recognition that things do not look like they're getting better. And we thought for sure a year ago that President Trump was going to come in and just, there's that old saying that when you feel like you have a plan, that just wait a few minutes and you, Father, will change that. But we feel like we're there. We feel like we're a year into this, 10 months into it, and we just haven't seen any progress. We feel like we're being hogtied and deceived. And we can see who's responsible for it. We can see all the people that are running the same operations they were running before, creating chaos and slowing down accountability. So, Father, I just ask that you give us the tools to hold people accountable. And I ask you give us a calmness as we go into it, that we can be sure of the decisions we make. And one of the biggest problems we have, Father, is that we have sticks. And those sticks are the police show up and they arrest us. They don't arrest the evil. We have judges that attack and persecute us. They don't arrest the evil. We have leaders that stand up and defend evil, and they won't defend us. We have a media that lies with impunity and attacks us. We know, Father, that we are up against the wall. And frankly, I think I just would ask you to give us the vision to be able to overcome it and to not be afraid of them attacking us, and that we could build numbers, that we can build our Gideon 300 in every community. Help us, Father, that we may never become the very thing that we're fighting against, but we must recognize when it is time we must stand up for our fellow brothers and sisters. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Oh, I got to do a couple ads, huh? Just one? Oh, I got to deal one with perplexity? Okay, let's do it. You guys, I got an ad I have to read. Start reading. Looking for smarter ways to browse and enjoy your favorite content without ads? Get the Perplexity Pro Bundle with Rumble Premium for just $19.99 a month when you sign up before December 31st. Normally a $29.99 value. With Rumble Premium, you get an ad-free viewing experience across all your devices and access to exclusive premium content. No interruptions, just the videos and streams you love anytime, anywhere. Plus, Perplexity Pro boosts your productivity with unlimited research, unlimited uploads, exclusive member perks, and access to the latest and most advanced AI models for faster, smarter answers every day. Save over 30% on this powerful bundle. Head to rumble.com/premium before December 31st to sign up and unlock your premium experience. That's awesome. Can we do another one? I don't want to stall for 20 minutes. Hey, you guys have a great weekend. Listen, I do not want to discourage you at all. I want you to think for yourself. I want you to find your tribe, and then I want our tribes to find other tribes. And I want to pull. You know what I want to do? I want to get like the Bundy effect, where he went literally and went to go visit and stopped the government from taking over, the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, taking over people's property. And yeah, next week, by the way, I will be out of the office. You'll have I will be gone. And I hope you guys have a great holiday season for Thanksgiving. And we'll have some holiday specials. We also have a update coming up related to be a series 2 that should maybe come out this weekend. It might be early next week before we get it out. Oh, and DCF podcast is when? When is that? Oh, it's DCF podcast tomorrow's at noon. Oh, you're not going to want to miss tomorrow. It's going to be really good with the Christmas specials. We need some Apollo. Yeah, I'll have Apollo back on here shortly, maybe. It was Chris, enjoy your family. You too, you as well. Have a great weekend. All right, God bless you all. We'll see you soon.
Rise up untamed in the heart of the fight where the wild ones roam. Joe Oltmann's calling, bringing truth back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits higher. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation, igniting the night. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. Break the mold, chase the real, no more games, time to heal. Joe's voice leads the untamed crew. Truth matters through and through. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Tame nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave